This video is for students in the 6th grade at Grant County Middle School. This is covering Unit 8, Learning Target 5, which is Southwest Asia and the Nile. Unit 8, Learning Target 5 is it's a doozy. It's describe how the key physical features and human activity affect river systems by identifying how the Nile changes from source to mouth. And that's a mouthful, I'll tell you that. Bottom line here is this is all of Chapter 19, the last chapter that we've discussed. And there's a lot to it, and so you're going to basically use our virtual field trip where we went down the Nile River as a major reference for gathering information. All the key elements of the river, such as the As-Sud region, the confluence, the sources of the river, the farmland along the river, especially in the Nile Delta where most of the farming is done. And then, of course, the mouth of the river at the delta and where it meets the Mediterranean Sea. So you need to know all of those major impactful things. Covering those in detail, the source of a river is where it begins, and there are two sources to the Nile River. The Blue Nile is Lake Tana. The White Nile is Lake Victoria. And so any source is basically a source where it begins in the higher elevations. The mouth of the river is where a river ends. We talked about that also. And that's usually in an ocean or a large body of water. Couple of things to note too. The Nile is the longest river in the world, so make sure that you understand that, the entire river system anyway. Throughout history, there have been some rough waters along the Nile that have inhibited or prevented river travel. These are very famous rock outcroppings called cataracts that have done this, and so the ancient Egyptians had to find ways to navigate around these cataracts, and most of the time, including them picking their boat and their goods up out of the water and carrying it by them, and then going back into the water later. Another significant point on the Nile River would be Lake Nasser, which is a reservoir. It is the world's largest reservoir, and it is created by, which a reservoir is a man-made lake, and it's created by the Aswan High Dam, which was built in Egypt in 1970 to help control the river's flow, and it helped produce some hydroelectric power, as well as allow the Egyptians to have perennial irrigation as they were able to control the flow of the river throughout the year. So those are some major benefits of this. There were some downsides to it, as the rich silt that used to come from the flooding of the Blue Nile, which would go down the river, would be a fertilizer for farmland. It was no longer available because it would sit at the bottom of Lake Nasser and would not go past the dam. The last gift of the Nile that we discussed was the richest farmlands in the world, and this is in the Nile River Delta. This is where, if you remember our satellite image that we looked at, we saw the river really fan out and form this V shape or triangular shape. Rivers tend to do that because they slow down as they reach the mouth of their existence, the end of their existence there. And so that water slows down and it spreads out, and this has created a lot of very rich farmland where Egypt has been able to produce a lot of their food, as well as their main export, which would be cotton. If you understand all of these things, then you should be well equipped for Learning Target 5. Good luck.